we have to work on our yes management and exactly what are we going to spend and deploy our time on that's going to be most valuable, not just to the business, but to my family as well.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. Your host, Joshua Gillow, is back with you today, and I have John Valenta's back on from General Paving Stones. And today we're going to flip the hood open, and we're going to listen to a couple of the calls he's received lately here for spring 2026. Some of the the client calls that he's getting and how he's screening them now. So, John, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Joshua.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. I love your insight. And, you've been around a long time in this industry, so I love to hear what you're up to. So tell us a little bit about the calls you've been receiving here this springtime. I know you've had a whole plethora of different things going on. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a slow start, but yeah, the phone's been ringing a lot lately. And thanks to your book, I've been in, sales training for many years and have a process, but your book, opened up some new ideas, and I am now, qualifying way more than I used to. On that first phone call, I'm asking a lot more questions and getting a lot deeper into, what the people want and why and when, and, deciding if it's, a good fit for us and something that, we can help them with or we're interested in helping them with. And turns out it's saving me a tremendous amount of time. In the past, I would have been running out like crazy all over the place, chasing these leads, meeting with them for, hour or two and driving back and forth and, missing out on, better opportunities, missing out on time with my family and really getting nowhere. And I've got this stack of papers right here. I have like a incoming call sheet that I fill out as I'm on the phone with a prospect for the first time. And I got a stack of 8 papers of, 8 different prospects I spoke to. And there was only one that I actually went out to. So 7 of them got weeded out right there on that first phone call. So you just think about maybe 2 hours I would have spent between driving and meeting with these people times 7. That's 14, almost 2 full work days. I just saved myself right there. So yeah, it's really been great.
I love that, dude. And you know what? I found the exact same thing when I was, doing this years ago. As I was driving all over, constantly thinking if I could just show up, I was just in front of them, I get an opportunity. If I just sat in the office and I felt like I was failing or I wasn't doing what I could do to encourage them to go with us. And that's where I had to create the system in order to be able to do this pre-qualification on the phone before we ever even turn a key or drive anywhere, right? To your point. So 14 hours you receive back, basically 2 work days that you can go do whatever you want to do with. And you know that in your heart that you're not, wasting it on people who really can't say yes to you. So I know you've had some interesting conversations since you've integrated more of a discovery call process before going out. So tell us, I know there's 2 of them. I'd love to hear it away that the ones, because this is where most people are scared about, right? So tell us about the 2 that and what they did that possibly shocked you. I don't know. Maybe it didn't shock you.
Yes, so I was actually very shocked. I was a little, shaken, taken aback. I got hung up on twice now. And in just a little over 20 years of doing sales now, that was a first and a second. So yeah, not everyone is going to like the, questioning and the process. And so many of these people are, I think they're just like, trained by the typical contractor that takes the call and runs right out there and rushes to give them that free estimate. And we're not doing that, but so many contractors still are. So there's what seems like an expectation from a prospect that calls that I'm just going to drop everything and run out there and do whatever they want and give them whatever I can for free to, just give them what they want and not respect or value my time. And yeah, these two individuals didn't like some of the questions I asked and got to the point where they hung up on me. So yeah, we can go into a little bit of detail and tell you about each one individually and what happened and what I took from it.
No, absolutely. I definitely want to dive in there. And listeners, that was a, it's a big fear, I think, in all of us that we're going to piss somebody off. They're going to write a bad review, that we're going to, be in some way shutting ourselves down of an opportunity. Because springtime, we're trying to fill our schedule, quickly. We're trying to find all the right fit clients that are going to get in there and actually do something with us in the year. And to think about putting an extra level of filtering can be scary. It really can be. And to the bigger fear of what if they don't like it, or what if they yell at me, or what if they hang up on me, right? Those were my fears, right? And you just had to kind of move through it. So yeah, take us through some of the experiences that you've had here with these two people specifically.
Yeah, okay. So the first one was actually a a lead through Techo Block, like as a Techo Pro. So you think that's, maybe a little bit more qualified, where they send me the information and then, I call up the prospect, which I did. It was a woman. And, I first say, tell me a little bit about the project and what you're hoping to do. So this was, sounded like it could be great, walkway, patio, retaining wall, stairs, the whole backyard project, right? And there was something there that had been there for probably 20 years and it's kind of all falling apart and she's ready to start over. So I'm like, this is something that could be great for us. So I go down the questions about you know when she was hoping to have it done and things. And then I get to the question about are there any other decision makers, anyone else that might want to have input on this project that we should include? And she's like, "No, my husband doesn't need to be involved." I'm like, "Oh, well, using your line from, your book, we found the best results, or we get the best results, if we have all decision makers present and, we can get input from everyone and, make sure that we, build a project that, helps you both and we can help you better that way." And she's like, "No, my husband will be at work. He doesn't need to be here." So I said, are you sure he's not gonna wanna have any input on the project, the design, the materials, the cost?" And she says, "I think we're done here." Click.
Yep. Yep. So how do you read into that? What meaning do you apply to that experience?
Yeah, I mean, first I was shocked. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to being rejected." I mean, at least not in that way. I'm used to more of I gotta think about it and never get back to you. So I mean, and you told a story I don't think you got hung up on, but how a woman was maybe offended that
Mhm.
you thought that her husband had to be there because she's a woman. And, we didn't get to that point in this conversation where, I think in that case, I would have just responded, if your husband called, I would insist that you be there as well. It's not if it's the husband or
Yeah.
the wife. It's just that we get the best results if we have both of you there. So I'm thinking that it might have been something like that that she didn't think I trusted her or whatever without her husband, but I really just want to serve them the best I can, which is when we involve all decision makers. So
No, you're
yeah,
absolutely
I'm
right.
guessing somebody ended up going out there that didn't have a qualification process and
Mm.
might have wasted a lot of their time because from all of my experience, I'm guessing if I would have just went out there and met with just her, whatever time I spent with her, it would have ended with, "Okay, I'm going to talk to my husband."
Mm. Yep. At some point, the
Yeah, and I
landmine is set.
probably never would have heard from her again. So there's a few hours of my life I just got back.
No, absolutely, dude. And that's exactly right. And it's hard to hear that. It's hard to hear people, get pushy or getting pissy on the phone. And what they're expecting is, to your point, contractors, and we've done it forever. We just say, yeah, no problem. How's Thursday, 2 o'clock? And you show up at 2:15 or whatever, right after you're still in your work boots, going for the job over, trying to get there and do the right thing, right? But you get there and they just expect you to drop everything and come running. But that's not, it's not their fault to expect that. That's what they've been given. That's what we've been doing forever. And that's what I wrote the book to change how we do this, that we actually value our time and want to spend it with the right people, not just everybody. Right. And that's not trying to be elitist or anything like that. It's about, at the end of the day, we have 24 hours. We all get the same amount, whether you're Elon Musk or whether you're you or I. We all get 24 hours in a day. So what are we going to spend them on? And I prefer to spend them with people that actually want to work with us, and not the ones that are just looking for a free design or a free quote or some free information, right? I love serving, I love helping, but we have to work on our yes management and exactly what are we going to spend and deploy our time on that's going to be most valuable, not just to the business, but to my family as well. So if we're out there and you're closing every single one you're going out to, and you're able to create cash flow that way and help the family and all that stuff, and that's a win-win for everybody. But when it's the other way around, where they're just taking and not giving, that's the part that we find out way too late in the relationship, that we were just used. We were just used for ideas, pumped for ideas, got 3 bids, and the next thing you know, they got to take them to their husband in your situation, or not that. And I want to be clear, listeners. I'm not saying that the husband has to be there, and John's not either. Saying that the husband has to be there because a man has to make the decision. That's not the point at all. The point here is that we find we get the very best results when both husband and wife are involved. It's the same line, right? We finally get to, because I know I've been married 20 years now. John, you've been married a long time too. I'm not making $50 or $100,000 decisions without my wife involved at some level. And I'd rather have her involved the entire time, not just after everything's done, say, what do you think? And then they say, you know what? I honestly think that we should just go buy the beach house instead, or we should put that money towards something else after all that time was spent. Your time, John. So that's the part, contractors, you're listening out there, that some people, they just don't value your time. They just think it's some kind of a game that they're entitled to. And that is not okay, because the time that we're spending in our businesses, that we're constantly feeling overwhelmed and stressed and like there's just not enough time in a day, it's because it's being pissed away with people who really can't say yes to you, but you feel the obligation to do something with them. And that looks like, in the past, hey, I'll be right out. And you go out and do that, and proposal, a sketch, a design, whatever. Next thing you know, you're hours into this, and the client's like, yeah. And then the landmine's detonated, and you're too gone to do anything about it. Like, just another one. And so that might sound scary that you get hung up on, but it's really, at the end of the day, a a great demonstration of a filter working. Not the hanging up part, but the reality that she wasn't a good fit. If they're bucking your system now by not following along, they're going to buck your price later. That's just the truth. If they're pushing back, like, no, that's just like somebody redlining your terms and agreement, or your contract. If they're looking through your contract and they're redlining parts, like, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with this. We're like, well, it sounds like we're not going to be doing business, because I wouldn't have it in there if I just thought it was for fun. Right? This is here for a reason. And if you don't like it, then maybe our expectations aren't aligned. And if that's the case, that's okay. Let's figure that out early and get those red flags out on the table, so we don't do it after we spent hours and hours and hours, if not days, working on this project to get it up for bid, and then get an accept or not an accept for it. And then find out later that it's not, the expectations just aren't lined up. So that's the interesting part about those kinds of things. But yes, I've had plenty of pushback on those kinds of things, but we have to be careful on how we frame it. If we frame it in a way, and I know you didn't do this, but if we frame it in a way where it's like, hey, Mrs. Jones, yeah, we need Mr. Jones here because, you know what? There's no way you could make this decision yourself, right? Or vice versa. It could be, all right, Mr. Jones, we have to have Mrs. Jones here because there's no reason why you can make this on your own. We know that just doesn't happen. Like, if it comes off that way, you will get hung up on all the time, because they're going to get pissed. They're going to get, offended, ruffle their feathers. That's not the idea. That's why it's all in the framing of how you then communicate that to them. So, John, you said you had also a second one that hung up on you. So how did that go?
Yeah, I think it was two within 1 week. So it's been fun around here. And yeah, this one is completely different. This was a man, and I did ask him about other decision makers, and he said no, and he just flat out said no. He didn't say my wife doesn't need to be involved. And I try to be a little careful. You never know if his wife recently passed away or what. I try not to, cry too much. And I'll just say, okay, I just want to make sure that, anyone that might have, wanted to be included in this process doesn't get left out. And, he just said no. And that's okay. I'll continue on and continue the conversation and continue asking questions. But I got an immediate feeling about this guy, um, definitely not valuing my time or my expertise.
Mm,
And, I no longer bore people with all of the details on our base and compaction and geogrid and all those things. I've learned that. But this guy started telling me how to build the project. Yeah, so he wanted a patio and he comes right out with a 785 square feet. Okay, how do you know that size is going to work? No, I know how to measure. I know how to do this stuff. Okay. And I asked him about, how he found us. And he says, I found you on the internet. And this was another one of those. He goes, yeah, I saw that you're a Techo Pro and you guys are all the same. You're no different than anyone else.
mm.
And yeah, that took me aback a little bit, and actually, was a little offended by that. The guy doesn't know me, never met me, and is, already before meeting him face to face, telling me I'm no different than anyone else. So I don't think he's going to be valuing my time again. And no, I asked him about when he hoped to have the project completed, and he says next week. And I'm like, wow, we uh we don't
It's
have,
laughable.
we don't have that much work on our schedule, but next week's a little unrealistic. Would it be okay if it was maybe a few weeks or a month? And he said, "Oh well, if I get the right price and I think it's going to be good, then maybe I can wait." Okay, so we get back to the
And you're
uh,
still in your office now, John, right? You're still on the phone in your comfortable chair, smiling, thinking, "Oh, thank God I'm not at his house." Continue.
yes, yes. So we get back to some more of him telling me how to do the job, and he's like, I want to be able to drive my car or my tractor on this patio. So I want to make sure you put in 8 inches of compacted RCA. And I said, wow, how did you know, that would work? And it gets right into like, don't tell me how to do this. I know how to do this kind of work. And then he said, after I asked him about the, how he knew about the 8 inches of RCA, how he knew that would work. And he says, why are you interrogating me? I should be the one interrogating you. And again, a little shooken up, like, wow, I'm just trying to get a feel for this guy and see if he's a good fit for us. And I said, you're welcome to ask me any question you want. I'll answer anything you ask. And he's like, what's your square foot price? And,
Hmm.
oh God, here's another one. So, and I said, explain, Joe, we don't have a square foot price. Every project is different and we price each project accordingly if, you choose to, have us work with you. So then I get, okay, we'll, continue on. And I get to the question about, beyond the work itself, what's most important to you in choosing the right contractor for your family? And he says, I think we're done here. Click.
Now, if that was 2 in one day, you'd be like, "Wait a minute here, somebody's playing a prank on me."
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he felt interrogated by, my questioning and prying about basically him telling me how to do the work and kind of questioning him about that. And, you know, he just seemed like he didn't value my time, he didn't value anybody, telling
Yeah.
us, we're all the same and no different. And, bringing up that whole square foot price thing and then telling me how to do the work and how to put in the base and compact it. And I'm sure it wouldn't have gone any better if I ended up going out there and meeting him face to face.
No, absolutely, dude. And that's the beautiful part about discovery call process like this. And anybody out there listening, whether you're doing $5,000 to $7,000 jobs or $500 to $700,000 jobs, a discovery process is critical to building rapport, to building a relationship, and to saving and preserving your time. That's the core of it all, right? To set that up. And that's what you're finding here. A filter, just like in your pickup truck, a filter on the fuel filter, it pulls impurities out, right? It gets them stuck in the filter and they don't go all the way through to the engine, right? To the carburetor. So with that being the case, same is true here. The idea of a filter is to get the ones like this, like these last two, that really were never going to turn into projects anyway, to get them stuck before you stuck a lot of time into them. And if they're not willing to, like I mentioned before, if they're not willing to follow a process or at least respect the fact you have a process or that you care enough to ask questions, what does this relationship look like in the future? If we were to look at it as a relationship and not just as a quick way to get cash with the least amount of communication, but if we look at it as relationships, because that's how we build rapport and connections so that we get referrals, because those are the easiest ones to close and hopefully the ones that cost us the least. So if that is the target, then why is it that the rest of the world just, meaning like homeowners, just think that's going to be a quick, yeah, give them a call. Somebody's going to pop up out here tonight at 5 o'clock and give me a free quote and a free design and a free bag of chips or whatever else they're expecting for free, right? All for the blessing of you blessing them with your time for free. Like there's just, they don't have the value. They don't see value in our time. They just think they're entitled to it. And that's not acceptable. Your doctor, your lawyer, hell, even your dog groomer's not going to have that kind of expectation, right? That's just why contractors. Why do we get beat up like this? Why do we have customers that just don't think our time matters? The answer to that is because we've let them. You get more of what you tolerate.
Absolutely. It's you look at half of the trucks out there, what do they say on them? Free estimates.
Yep.
The websites, free estimate. Call us for a free estimate. That's got to go away.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to have a truck out there that just said $1 million estimates. Drive around there, right? Estimates $1 million and see what happened. Oh my goodness, that'd probably stir up a lot of interest. But it's crazy, dude, right? It's crazy. And the way that we change that, because I don't know about you, but I know I got really sick and tired of wasting my time with people who just felt entitled to my time. And I'm like, no. And you know as well as I do that most of the men and women in this industry are good serving people that want to help and want to do well for their families and build cool projects and all that stuff. So we get stuck in that nice guy trap where we're just like, well, yeah, we got to do it. I mean, there might be something there. Let's go out and take a look at it. And we find out that after 2 or 3 hours of our time between driving and talking and putting a proposal together, that it was never a good fit in the beginning. But we feel like if we don't go all the way to that line where they say no, that we haven't seen it through. What I'm offering to our industry is an idea that what if we say it's not a good fit? What if we know that ahead of time instead of waiting for them? We call this the feeder and receiver of reality. So if you're a feeder in life, it means you're driving it, you're leading life, you're leading what you're doing. If you're a feeder, you're waiting for other people to do it for you. You're always saying, well, is it enough? Is that good? Should I jump higher next time, Mrs. Jones? Right? It's the victim versus the victor side of things. So if you're a feeder, in this case, you lead the conversation. And not because you're egotistical or because you want to take advantage or take control of somebody's life. That's not that at all. But you respect them and yourself enough to actually do a discovery process with them earlier so that when you get there, you know that there's alignment, that your customer is ready to move forward with the next steps, that they know what the next steps are, that they have expectations set, that it's actually going to be a very good investment of your time, not a time spent, an investment of your time. And that's what contractors need to wake up to, the idea that they are valuable, that they're valuable. They're an investment for your customers as well. Like you need to think about your time like an investment as well. And when we start thinking that way, and we start looking at ourselves thinking, you know what? I'm not just some guy that builds stuff. I'm not just some woman that designs or builds stuff. Like we are valuable. Our hands are valuable. We build the world with these hands. We need to think about where are they going and where are they being deployed to? What are they being directed toward? Is it everybody? Because if you try to be everything to everybody, you'll be nothing to nobody. We need to become really, really careful and purposeful in what we spend and who we spend our time with. And if we don't, people will keep taking advantage of us. They'll keep taking our time. They'll keep saying, no problem. Yeah, keep coming out. But when you put that line in place, that filter, that discovery process, it immediately, first of all, it hijacks their pattern of what they think is going to happen next. And you get to reset and recalibrate what leadership looks like in our world. That's the beautiful part. And then when you do get the right client, the one that comes through, because not every client, listeners, is the right client. When the right fit client comes through and you're like, wow, this is amazing. There's a process here. I feel like this is good. We get that all the time. They're like, wow, I feel like there's something here. It's not just some guy shooting off the hip, winging it like the rest of them are doing. There's something different here. These guys have done this before. We're willing to pay more for that because there's certainty that comes with systems. So it's something. If we continue to do this as an industry and just show up, we can only expect the same thing we've always gotten, which is 25 to 30% close rates. And to John's point, 14 hours of his life that would have been wasted, but now isn't wasted.
Right on, Joshua. It's it's something that's definitely got to change in the industry. The amount of time that I wasted in the last 20 years, pre-designed and pre-estimates, I don't even want to think about it. And if we can, help some other people to not waste that kind of time, that would be excellent.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, listeners. I hope you got something from today's episode. And if you really want to do a real good gut check here in the spring, you want to do a really good gut check, start tracking how much time you're spending with each customer. Write a sheet out. It can be a simple Excel spreadsheet or a piece of paper. You just put some lines on, and you write out Mrs. Jones. You write out how much time you spent with her and whether you closed it or not, and start running a list like that, a close list, and see what actually kind of time you're putting into that. And then once you look back, if you're closing every one, kudos. Awesome. Maybe we'll hire you to be a teacher. But most aren't going to be, because I know I certainly didn't. And when they start to see like, wait a minute here, holy crap, I thought my close rate was higher. All that time I spent 16 hours last week. When you start tracking your time, 16 hours last week with people who never went through. Or you do it every month because sometimes these sales cycles are longer. You're like, holy crap, I have 50 hours invested in people who haven't gotten back to me and won't get back to me. 50 hours. That's this entire work week. When you start putting it in that perspective, then you think, what else could I have done with that time? What if I could have qualified them ahead of time and only went out to the ones that were most highly likely to move forward and broom the rest off on the phone in my office? What would life be like? What would life be like? What would I do with that time? How could I invest that in my business or in my family? Could I take some time for myself? Holy moly. Would I be less stressed or more stressed if I didn't have all those places to run and all those people to talk to, and I didn't know whether it's going to be a good investment or not? I think, John, a lot of it for me was the uncertainty of what happens if I don't go and what happens if I do go. So going seemed like the easier thing to do until I walked away with nothing or that beautiful false yes. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, it's like you said, a 25% chance maybe going out there if you're actually gonna, get a project out of it. If it's a 25% chance or less, I'm not gonna leave the office. It's not worth it. I wouldn't gamble, on that kind of a chance. 25.
Exactly. That is gambling is what it is. That's an excellent word for it. It's gambling. And if you like to pull the arm of the slot machine and you think 25% of the time you may win. For some, that might be good enough, but I'm not going to spend time away from my family or even building my business legacy to get the freedom that I originally signed up for when I started my business on a 25% margin. I want higher probability, and that's done by effectively and purposefully screening people that are coming to your business, because not every single person is a good fit. We need to find the right ones that we can spend the most time with, that we make the biggest impact with. And that's when business becomes fun, because you're not running ragged anymore. You're actually running very, very purposeful. Well, John, thank you for coming back on here. I know we're going to jump into a couple more of your calls here next week and discuss some of the things that are coming up that you're seeing out there. I appreciate you coming out, and listeners, we'll talk next week.